Come on, Savannah.
3, 2, 1, face off. Face forward, please, guys. Perfect.
Thanks, boys. Thank you, guys. All right, good.
Turned out that punching and kicking Irish kid had spent some time in the wrestling room, right? I mean, he just looked better than we knew that he was. Enters the 5-round club, deals with it. And one thing that he had to deal with that night, Ian Garry has never fought where he was not bolstered up and he was the guy. Ian Garry's never done a ring walk where the audience knew this guy's overwhelmed. He's done that to other guys, but he's not been in that position. How does the guy do? Guys act one way when they're the favorite, but they seldomly act the same way as an underdog, and vice versa. Some guys will do their best work as underdog. Some guys actually get drawn down when you got an audience saying, I don't know, this could be a hard one. That seeps into them. But it didn't seep into Garry. So how are you going to beat?
A lot to talk about for every aspect of this fight. Now, the striking, Ian Garry, what are the obvious things? Very tall, the tallest opponent that Islam has ever faced to date.
Yeah.
Habib and Islam also said that he's very hard to hit because he moves a lot. You know, he tends to run. And Islam said, the only thing in camp that I really haven't enjoyed is having to chase fighters down because we're preparing specifically for Ian and how much he uses the cage and kind of disengages and only really re-engages on his own terms.
Right.
But Islam's also a great striker in his own right. I think because his grappling is so good, he doesn't get a lot of credit for being a really good striker, and he actually is a very good striker. So let's start there. You know, it's going to be open stance mostly, left-handed for Islam, going to be fighting out of southpaw. Ian fights orthodox, so we're going to have an open stance likely for the majority of the fight.
Ian Garry is going to beat Islam because it's starting to feel that way. Just a little more and a little more. Charles Oliveira, just to throw a name at you, a guy that knows everybody, has the right to an opinion. He said Ian Garry's going to win. That's interesting. Ian Garry is a stand-up fighter from Ireland who idolizes Conor McGregor. So now we know everything we need to know about Ian Garry. He's a sharpshooter. He's going to use his hands. He's going to use his kicks. He can't do any jiu-jitsu. But then somewhere along the way, he started training with Damian Maia. And it was an interesting coincidence because he ended up on bottom against MVP with his back taken, but was never in trouble. So then we're going to go, okay, great. You had problems grappling with this guy, MVP, who's not a grappler. You got real big problems now because you're going to fight Rakhmonov, who's going to expose everything that you don't know. And it hurts.
I think the odds, because of the style, favors Makhachev probably. You know, stylistically, he's a freaking nightmare to fight for anyone. He's, I think, right now the best pound for pound on the planet. But Ian Garry definitely has all the chance also on his side to do it. He's a very good striker. He's very long. He's great grappling, a great grappler as well. But he need, I think, to find a way to keep the fight standing, you know, like, and to use his style to his own advantage.
Oh man, that fight, when is gonna be that fight? October, I think? October, August? So, man, it's hard to be against Islam Makhachev, you know? I think he's super good. Looks like the division fits perfect to him. Ian Garry has an amazing footwork, amazing head movement, a really good distance, but I don't know, man. I think I'm going with Islam.
Exactly. So I am actually loving how Islam's striking is coming along. His kicks are great. He's got really good discipline with his jab hand. So whenever he does throw a combo or closes distance to try to land some strikes, when he exits, he's really good about putting a jab in your face just to sort of keep you at bay. It usually doesn't land, but it's really good to get something out there and in the line of fire from what Ian Garry or anybody else in the past. Yeah, this is really interesting. Ian Garry is obviously a great striker, and that's how he's been able to win most of his fights and get to a title shot. But Islam Makhachev's striking is actually slept on, and it's largely because he comes from Dagestan, and everybody knows Khabib was the guy who set the precedents, and they have great grappling from there. But the Dagestani strikers or fighters are becoming really high-level strikers. Just look at Usman Nurmagomedov.
18 finishes when I fought. Carlos Prates had an 11-fight win streak by knockout when I fought him. When I step into this octagon against Islam Makhachev, I'm going to prove to the world why I'm a shadow.
3 days before the cage door closes, the tactical architecture of this fight comes down to one fundamental question. Who controls the geography? This isn't about cardio predictions or predictions. It's about how Islam Makhachev's multiphase pressure system collides with Ian Garry's range-based distance architecture, and which fighter forces the other into the fight they don't want. Islam Makhachev fights out of southpaw stance. Ian Garry fights orthodox. This open stance configuration determines everything that follows. Islam's kicks become a constant threat because the lead leg geometry works in his favor. His jab hand, the discipline most people miss, isn't designed to land clean. It's functional spacing, a constant object in Garry's line of fire that forces reaction before Islam closes distance. Islam has spent camp specifically countering what Garry does best: movement and disengagement off the cage. When Garry tries to reset, Islam's striking isn't trying to hurt him, it's trying to keep him from creating the distance he needs. Islam Makhachev's grappling threat isn't separate from his striking system, it's the entry device. His takedown attempts don't need to land, they need to be believed. The moment Garry prioritizes defense against the clinch, his striking stance collapses, his weight gets heavier on his back foot, his movement becomes reactive instead of proactive. This is clinch architecture at the highest level. Islam threatens the takedown, Garry tightens defensively. Islam's hand finds the cage or the neck, and suddenly Garry isn't controlling distance anymore. He's defending position. Ian Garry presents a different tactical system, distance mastery. He's the tallest opponent Islam has ever faced. That reach advantage becomes a weapon if Garry maintains range and forces Islam to consistently reset. Every time Islam closes distance without establishing clinch control, he's expending energy. Garry's footwork is designed to make Islam chase, to make Islam work harder for every inch of space. Garry's striking from range, the hands. The kicks becomes most effective when Islam is either out of range or recovering from a failed approach. The tactical path for Garry is clear. Keep the fight at the distance Islam doesn't want. The wrestling question determines energy economics. If Garry successfully defends Islam's clinch entries, he forces Islam into repeated attempts with diminishing returns. The more takedown threats that fail, the more Garry's confidence in his wrestling defense increases. Islam's grappling was built to be believed early in the fight so he can establish control later. If Garry can stay vertical and make Islam pay for every approach, the later rounds become completely different from the first. But if Islam can land early clinch sequences, even without finishing takedowns, he establishes the narrative. Garry will have to think about this threat every time Islam approaches. Islam's striking is chronically underrated because his grappling is so dominant. He has great kicks. His hand discipline is exceptional. Usmanov, another Dagestani fighter, has more knockouts than any other method of victory. The technical standard from that region is high. Islam won't be trying to strike with Garry at distance, he'll use his strikes to set up entries, to create reactions, to make Garry hesitate before he can establish his rhythm. The striking in this fight isn't about exchanges, it's about functional setup. Every Islam strike either threatens clinch access or forces Garry to commit to a defensive stance. Ian Garry has never fought where he wasn't the favorite. Every fighter adapts their approach based on crowd confidence and narrative position. Garry has imposed his style on opponents consistently, but he's never been in the position where the audience consensus says this could be difficult. Psychology enters here, but the mechanical reality doesn't change. Garry's system requires distance. If Islam can establish early clinch sequences, the fight enters the portion of the volume where Islam's multiphase pressure becomes cumulative. The later rounds may look completely different from the first because of early pattern establishment. Cardio becomes a secondary variable to strategy selection. The fighter who appears fresher in round 4 isn't necessarily the better conditioned athlete. He's likely the fighter who spent less energy fighting the battle he didn't want. If Garry is constantly defending clinch entries in the earlier rounds, wrestling exchanges drain different energy systems than striking combinations do. If Islam is constantly resetting and chasing because Garry is making the fight difficult from range, that's a different cardio math. The cardio advantage goes to whoever wins the tactical battle first, not the other way around. Composure becomes critical because both fighters have legitimate paths to victory, but both paths require early execution. For Garry, the first 2 rounds are essential. Establish the distance rhythm, make Islam chase, force him to feel that the takedown won't work easily. For Islam, those same first 2 rounds are about establishing clinch patterns, making Garry aware that every approach will be contested, setting the psychological framework for later rounds. One mistake early, a failed distance reset, a failed takedown entry, a missed strike that breaks rhythm, can shift the entire narrative of how the opponent approaches the later phases. The fight that's about to happen at UFC 330 is determined by how each fighter's system impacts the other's preferred engagement. Islam has a clear route: pressure, clinch architecture, and the grappling threat. Garry has a real opportunity if he can force Islam to repeatedly reset and consistently punish the entries before they develop into longer clinch sequences. The fighter who recognizes their opponent's early adjustments and adapts first will likely control the fight's progression. This isn't about who's stronger or who has better cardio. It's about whose system survives first contact and who remains adaptive when the game plan collides with real resistance inside the cage. The theories end when the cage door closes. Everything both fighters have trained for in camp becomes irrelevant compared to what actually happens across 5 rounds of live combat. Islam Makhachev and Ian Garry are both elite-level operators with legitimate systems. The question of who controls the geography, who forces the other fighter into the disadvantageous range, who makes the adjustments first, will be answered inside the octagon, not in analysis. Not in face-offs and not in prediction. That answer comes only when they fight.